A Derecho will be possible later this afternoon, evening, and into the overnight hours, especially for portions of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and maybe down into northern Illinois, portions of Michigan, and also maybe for portions of Illinois. But northeast Minnesota through a large portion of Wisconsin has the highest risk for intense damaging wind gusts of 75 to 80 miles an hour or greater, maybe as high as 90 miles an hour. We're going to take a deep dive into the timing, potential outcomes for this event, and dig a little bit deeper into current conditions of what may be for later today and some of the differences between now, like the storm fuel. There's all the ingredients for severe weather. A complex of thunderstorms should develop as early as mid afternoon as the cap begins to break up into northern Minnesota because of an incoming shortwave trough. As that happens, the cap will break, which is a layer of warm air in the middle of the atmosphere that prevents storms from developing or strengthening if they do develop. So, taking a look at about 2 3 p.m. or so this evening now, this is just one outcome. Model guidance continues to struggle in the outcomes, and it's highly unlikely that model guidance will be right on what actually happens for later today. But either way, this is a look at one model. There is a complex of thunderstorms that develops in northeast Minnesota very fast, and then it will rapidly move southeast, down and further south into Minnesota, and down into Wisconsin as well. There is another complex over here in portions of Michigan as well. I do think this would be a bit more organized and like together, a bit more widespread than what this model is showing, and I doubt there would be severe weather over here into Sioux Falls area later today. So again, a lot of differences in model guidance that I don't agree with. But either way, the focus area of complexes will likely be along a gradient of storm fuel and the temperature gradient that I will show soon here for later today. Either way, these complexes will be rather intense that could produce wind gusts of 80 to 90 miles an hour, maybe even slightly greater. Now, as these rapidly move southeast this evening and into sunset time frame, we will likely have a complex pushing through Wisconsin. This is about 9 p.m. this evening or so. We will likely have a complex pushing through central Wisconsin at this time, a bit more widespread than what this shows, with a continued threat of widespread damaging winds with intense winds possible. Now let's move to about midnight or so. This has it weakening at this time by about 10 to midnight or so. I don't really think that will be the case. I think it will be able to last a bit longer down into southeast Wisconsin and down to Illinois. But then it has some scattered severe thunderstorms later this evening into the early overnight hours for portions of Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, because the cap will break at this time. So if the cap can break around sunset, there will be scattered damaging wind gusts for portions of southern Minnesota and Iowa, and that is why I have that slight risk, the yellow area, through much of Iowa for this evening for a conditional risk for weather as long as the cap can break, with damaging wind gusts the main threat. Potentially up to 70 mile wind gusts, but it appears pretty isolated to scattered gusts at that level at the time. And as we move further into the overnight hours, we continue to see some thunderstorms around, which is pretty likely. We will have a ton of storm fuel, and then it will clear out by the morning hours. Taking a look at a different model for later today, this is the H-Blow model. It continues to struggle so badly on showing the evolution of these complexes, but this has a much later initiation. It doesn't have storms developing at all until sunset, when you get a cluster developing, and then it begins to dive southeast over time with a couple of different clusters well into the overnight hours. This is by 11 p.m. It's still way up here this time. So again, a lot of disagreement for later today. But as we move a little bit later into the evening hours, okay, I have to go back a model run because this is a new one coming out now. As we move back further into the evening, see, so this is the last model run. Compared to the new one, the last model run had it being about 40 miles further east. The last model run was about 40 miles, further west over here. That is why I'm telling you, model guidance continues to struggle. That's why confidence is lower on the placement, but the confidence has been very high for days now on a possible derecho through portions of the Great Lakes region, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa for this time period. It's just model guidance just continues to have a hard time with it. Taking a look at a one that comes out a little bit further out, you can see this has a more this has a initial complex further east to portions of the UP Michigan by sunset this evening, and then a further west, likely Derecho through portions of Wisconsin for this evening's time frame. But again, this will be a very intense complex. And by the way, I am using zonewatch.com. If you get a subscription, which is half the price of so many weather apps, half the price of coffee, like it's very cheap, and you get so many features and so much model guidance and so much features for both winter weather and sea weather on zonewatchpro.com. So you can subscribe today. You do get a free trial as well. Which, by the way, if you look at um, something else there, but we can see that this complex continues to dive southeast. This is by about 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, and so we can see a evening and overnight complex to Wisconsin. There's a chance this is further west than what's now being shown, and I will explain why as we get a bit closer, I guess you want to say, to this evening's time frame. Because if you can take a look at the temperature gradient for later today, it's going to be very hot and humid over here, but the temperature gradients ish will be along about this area. It seems, if so, it'll be along this area. Right now, if you can see, it's pretty far west yet. It's still along the Mississippi River, not Missouri River. Even if that, and it's already noon or so. Well, by the time you see this video, it'll be close to noon. So, it's kind of on time, I would say. But if the complex will develop soon here, early on, it would track much further southwest. So that is why confidence is a bit lower on that happening. But low level moisture is very high. It continues to stream north. We have dew points well into the 70s, low 80s dew points showing up in Iowa. This will continue to stream northward. But what's interesting is we have this gradient showing up way further west into Iowa as well. As this pushes northeast a little bit, we could get the complex to push further west into Iowa for later today. So that is another thing that we will continue to watch. Either way, there will be a lot of storm fuel because of the very high dew points and temperatures later today. We're going to have 3,000 plus joules of storm fuel through a large area this afternoon and evening time frame. You can see that gradient setting up about here or so. So I would definitely, I assume it's me further west than what the model guidance is trying to show for later today. Closer to that river rather than the UP Michigan is what I'm leaning on for later today. And then taking a look at the tornado parameters, again, the tornado threat will be low for this event. It appears to be mainly of a damaging wind threat. But as we push into the evening hours, we see, the parameters for tornadoes are a bit low still, so not really much of a concern there for tornadoes today. Well, taking a look at the winds and the low levels of the atmosphere, we will have pretty strong low level winds closer to the complex of thunderstorms because it isn't MCS. It's more of a small system, and when you have these very strong winds in the low levels of the atmosphere, and this is nuts, by the way. As this mixes down to the surface, obviously you get them damaging, destructive wind gusts in some of these areas as this complex continues just to bow out or so as well. And then again, we have a shortwave trough pushing in this evening too, a pretty strong shortwave trough. So everything is coming together for a possible derecho later today for portions of Wisconsin. Wisconsin is the main state here, but it should develop late. I would say probably late afternoon time frame, a little bit earlier than what some model guidance shows, about late afternoon time frame. Further north into northeast Minnesota and dive southeast to a large portion of Wisconsin later today. But don't be surprised if some of eastern Minnesota and down into Iowa will tap into this complex as well. Maybe down into portions of northern Illinois as well. So again, this is around midnight tonight. This is definitely, I feel like, a bit too late for this time period. So this probably seems more realistic. So we should see this complex begin to move into Wisconsin probably around supper time, maybe as late as sunset. We should see this complex dive southeast, upwards of 60 miles an hour into Wisconsin. Again, producing widespread damaging wind gusts. There's a low end tornado threat. And as we move into this evening, deeper into this evening, this complex will continue to dive south into central Wisconsin. A bit more widespread than this. I I can almost guarantee it'll be more widespread than this. By about 9 p.m. this evening, and then we should start to see things to go down towards midnight into southern Wisconsin and into northern Illinois. So a very long track complex is possible. To be considered derecho, you need them, severe criteria wind gusts for at least 400 miles an hour or greater in a certain width as well. But that's not a concern here. I see this complex being pretty widespread of an area. So again, 400 miles an hour or greater for that criteria. Either way, if it's not considered derecho later today, there will be intense wind gusts with this complex, producing widespread damaging winds through much of Wisconsin into northeast Minnesota. There's always a chance the cap doesn't break or things don't go as planned, but today is definitely a day to prepare for much of Wisconsin to northeast Minnesota. I will have a lot of updates on Facebook throughout the rest of the day today, and on X as well. So make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me on X. My X is Meadows Weather, and also on Facebook as well.